Liz Ruffa. Liz is Special Projects. She is Special Projects for Common Good Vermont. And she's going to be talking about the research and partnership she's been building around social impact bonds, which is a relatively new concept, but is gaining a lot of ground across the country. And Liz is going to do a little bit of a lightning round on this topic, but you just need to know that if you would like to speak in more detail on the topic of social impact bonds, there's probably no one in Vermont right now that knows more than she does. So thank you so much, Liz, for being with us today, and thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. So I'm going to give you a quick briefing about the work that we have been doing in regards to social impact bonding and pay-for-success transactions. In an effort to diversify funding opportunities for Vermont's nonprofit sector, Common Good Vermont has stepped up its research and outreach regarding social impact bonds, also known as pay-for-success transactions. Common Good Vermont has been exploring leading-edge paradigms for financing state and nonprofit partnerships. We encourage philanthropy, government, and the social sector to learn with us so we can collectively deliver positive, long-lasting results in our work and for the state. As the aggregator of the nonprofit, mission-driven sector, Common Good Vermont continues to witness a structural fraying of the compact between our state agencies and the nonprofit organizations that deliver their services. Flatline funding across programs is making it harder and harder for providers to deliver services effectively, much less handle growing unmet needs. Currently, neither the nonprofit sector nor the state has the capacity to reverse these lackluster trends. Service providers are chronically underfunded, and Vermont's philanthropic networks cannot fill the gap. As a colleague recently reminded us, can't level fund the sector and expect it to deliver year after year. Proposed federal cuts would add considerable pressure to this situation, as state dollars will need to be stretched even further if said cuts are enacted. Impact investing leverages opportunities for nonprofit organizations and government agencies to improve program outcomes through private sector partnerships. Pay-for-success transactions provide opportunities as well for communities to direct resources towards programs that are intended to measurably and meaningfully improve lives in areas of local, regional, and statewide importance. In these transactions, private investors, foundations, philanthropists, and social impact investors provide program funds, and the end payer, a government, a healthcare system, an insurer, etc., returns that investment after an impartial evaluator finds that the program is working. This approach to funding social programs provides governments and service providers with the ability to link funding with outcomes, which puts the focus back on whether individuals and families are measurably better off. When Common Good Vermont began this research in 2014, there were 5 pay-for-success impact bonds in play. Now there are over 60 in assessment, structuring, and transaction phases across the United States. Leading pay-for-success policy areas include early childhood education, homelessness, recidivism, and workforce development. Emerging pay-for-success policy areas include public health, supportive housing, food access, and water quality. Common Good Vermont has established working relationships with national leaders in this space, namely the Nonprofit Finance Fund, Third Sector Capital Partners, Harvard's Kennedy Government School, the Case Foundation, and Sorensen Impact Center. These groups are continuously impressed with Vermont's nimbleness, our grasp of results-based accountability and impact and collective impact, and point to our size. We are the size of Denver or Seattle as it relates to scaling projects and to measuring what matters. Here in Vermont, we have connected with the Agency of Human Services, Bank of America, the City of Burlington, Department of Environmental Conservation, Fresh Tracks Capital, the Permanent Fund for Vermont's Children, Vermont Energy Investment Corporation, Vermont Community Foundation and Community Loan Fund, the Governor's Office, and the State Treasurer's Office, among others, to advance this critical thinking and its opportunities. To date, we have helped state agencies obtain technical assistance to determine project readiness and have connected with groups across sectors to explore the possibilities of this new model for their work together. By hosting meetings, conducting research, attending conferences and briefings, and following this emerging industry, we have watched the impact investing arena take hold. Common Good Vermont is acting as an intermediary organization to build capacity for Pay for Success and impact investing in Vermont. We want to ensure that nonprofit service providers, state agencies, and funders are all aware of the potential that Pay for Success, performance-related investing, and impact investment strategies bring. We are happy to announce a new working partnership with the Sorensen Impact Center. Embedded in the David Eccles Business School at the University of Utah, Sorensen Impact is a national leader in Pay for Success feasibility work and transaction structuring. This partnership will allow technical assistance and literacy around impact investing to spread across our state as we jointly offer assessment, structuring, and transaction assistance to policymakers, government agencies, and financiers. It is our hope that this impact incubator will develop into an impact accelerator for vetted social and environmental projects. Through convenings and strategic partnership building, we aim to synchronize measurable, performance-driven opportunities with financial resources in thoughtful, achievable ways. Pay for Success offers the potential to drive better results for Vermont, making our vulnerable population safer and our state economies more stable. We look forward to broadening and deepening this work and continuing to bring relevant information to your attention so that we can all set up Vermont for success in this field.
Can you talk about some examples of Pay for Success or social impact bonds that are now afoot nationally?
Afoot nationally. Two of the projects that people point to in Ohio, there's something called the Cuyahoga Family Partnership, which is a network of family and early childhood centers that put a bond together that basically took an existing payment structure and rebooted it. In Massachusetts, Roca is outside of Boston, and they did a very successful recidivism and workforce development project, having people when they either trying to mitigate people getting to jail in the first place, but if they had been in jail, making sure that they were not repeat offenders. As I said earlier, early childhood partnerships are working throughout the country now. Homelessness to Health is a project that's been working that is being funded in Virginia at the moment, which is looking at supportive housing for homeless people and trying to turn that curve so that there is an ultimate savings to the state. And one of the more interesting recent developments is that the first environmental impact bond was funded last fall for something called the DC Water Project. Chesapeake Bay and Washington, D.C. has very much, in a way, like Lake Champlain, a very large problem to fix, and it's mainly stormwater related. And so what they have done in their $3 billion 30-year project is to embed a $25 million green economy innovation hub to start to work to create an economy around fixing the problem before it becomes a problem.
Thanks. Some questions for Liz?
Anyone has any questions?
Yes.
My question is, so
can you just say who you are?
Oh, sorry, Russell Bradbury calling from Youth Services down in Brattleboro. I'm really like the idea of social impact bonds, but I do have a question. I was working down in Massachusetts with a PFS grant that was working with adult basic education and workforce development. And one of the things that ended up happening with that program that I started to see, and some others started to see, was that some programs ended up kind of creaming the crop. So basically working with folks who would be able to reach the goals sooner and more quickly, and then they would be able to get the income in. And so a lot of the folks that are going to take longer to work with, that were struggling, the more marginalized, were kind of being left out. And so one of my concerns about this is I think there's a potential for programs to inadvertently, or sometimes maybe overtly, kind of cream the crop, basically. And I'm wondering if those conversations are happening or how that's being dealt with as we're moving forward with thinking about doing this. Because I think it could be a real problem in the long run if not handled.
Thanks for bringing that up, and I think you're absolutely right that that is one of the challenges. These are not easy transactions. They, at this point, since it is a new space, the projects that have gone through early assessment and have found the funding to go into production, so to speak, are they are leading nonprofit agencies and service providers in a state. So I think one of the things that the Sorensen Impact Center is interested in working with us about is that our scale is different, it's smaller, and can there be a consortium approach to an issue that isn't just one leading large-scale provider, but that can actually take a look at the issue and the root cause from a multi-tiered approach.
Can you say something about how the financing works? Because I've never always been clear about how the private money comes. And is it explained in this?
It's explained in this, and it's explained very well in some of these resources on this wonderful sheet that you have. There is, but essentially, a program, there is a decision to retool a program. Say, for an example, that there's a supportive housing program that is not delivering sustainable results. So the idea would be, how can we create a new housing program that would, over the course of the future, deliver a better result at a cost savings. So the way that it works financially is that as a transaction is structured, private investors come in to back that transaction, and they give the service providers the funds up front to be able to retool the program. The transaction has to be backed. So state governments back it, insurers back it. You need to find a front end and a back end backer, so to speak. But that is pretty much how it works. And then there is fairly rigorous auditors along the way to make sure that you are achieving the goals. The first impact bond in America did not work. Michael Bloomberg backed a recidivism program at Rikers Island, and the outcomes were not achieved, and he was not paid back. So like any investment, you hopefully have, I think what's important to remember here is that there is a real emerging, it's no longer a vogue or a trend. The fact is that now social investing is what people want to do. They want to see a social return for their money as well as others, but that the social return, it's, Bank of America surveys their customer, it's 35% one year, and then it goes up to 40% the next.
So Liz is really in the deep dive portion of this research on our collective behalf, and so if you have particular questions, if you have some ideas that you think might be worth floating, if you want to learn more about the brass tacks, we certainly are covering it at the Common Good Vermont site, but you can feel free to contact Liz directly, and of course we'll send all these contacts out to you afterwards. I think Dolly has a question that she can ask you offline.
Great.
Thank you so much, Liz,
You're
for all
so
your
welcome.
work.